Tuesday evening to attend Wichita NOW's rather provocative debate called Is Religion the Enemy of Feminism? Many of you already know who I am. Vicki Stangl, president of NOW, and we have all of our, well, most of our board members are here tonight. Corey is our treasurer, and he's manning the headphones there for the sound, and you already met Faith and Liz at the door checking you in. Liz is our vice president, and Faith is our social media coordinator. And Beverly, our secretary, is somewhere around in the back. So thank you to my board. One of the goals Wichita NOW discussed last July was to come up with programs that would be interesting and involve something besides the issue of pro-choice. Given the nature of Kansas politics, it's very difficult for an organization such as NOW to concentrate on other issues when choice is constantly under attack. NOW's goal, however, is, and I'm quoting, dedicated to making legal, political, social, and economic change in our society in order to achieve our goal, which is to eliminate sexism and end all oppression, end of quote. Therefore, tonight's debate question gets to the heart of NOW's goal, to eliminate sexism and whether or not religion hinders or assists in that effort. Of course, to answer tonight's question, we must first have a working definition of feminism. And there, as you might guess, are multiple definitions. So I will throw out one of the definitions since it does closely resemble NOW's goals. And here's this definition. Quote, feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of political, social, and economic equality to men, end of quote. Now, our participants tonight may have a different definition of feminism, but we'll find that out soon. So tonight, I'm responsible for explaining the debate format and serving as the facilitator. The format is actually very simple. Both participants will deliver an opening statement regarding the debate question. Is religion the enemy of feminism? They each have 5 minutes for this purpose. They may speak less if they so choose. After the opening statements, there are specific questions already prepared that they will examine. Now, I need to tell you that these questions have already been provided in advance to help our participants fully prepare for this debate. However, once our participants have given their response, there will be a 2-minute rebuttal and then another 1-minute defense rebuttal. At the conclusion of our questions, we will then open questions up to you, the audience. Before we begin the debate, I want to introduce and thank our speakers for agreeing to participate in the program. I really am so pleased to have 2 excellent women to carry this important discussion forward. So I'm going to read their bios to you. I know they're in the program. But let's first introduce Reverend Robin McGonigle. And she's on my far left. Reverend Robin McGonigle is the senior minister at University Congregational Church in Wichita, Kansas. She has served 25+ years in ministry in 4 denominations and 6 congregations. One of only a handful of ordained female ministers in Kansas in the 1980s, Robin experienced the joys and frustrations of the changing face of ministry. She has also taught Christian ethics at Newman University and Christian leadership at Friends University. A feminist, minister, and mother, Robin continues to explore and expand theological understandings in and outside of the church. Our next participant, to my direct left, is Amanda Knief, right? Did I get it right this time? Amanda is the managing director and in-house counsel for the American Atheists, the leading civil rights organization for atheist equality and the separation of religion and government. Amanda is an expert in constitutional law and grassroots activism. She is the author of the upcoming book, The Citizen Lobbyist, a how-to manual for making your voice heard in government. She has worked as a legislative counsel for the Iowa legislature and as a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for the Secular Coalition for America. And now finally, to begin the debate, and I would like you to know that I did this in alphabetical order, so K comes before M when I last checked. So therefore, the first question will go to Amanda. But before we do the questions, I've got to first stop so that you can have your 5-minute opening statement, and then it will be Reverend McGonigle's turn. So, Amanda?
Good evening. First, I would like to thank Wichita NOW for having me, and especially to Vicki and her husband Bob for picking me up from the airport and hosting me. It's a little windier here than I expected. Also, I just want to make sure, good evening?
Good evening.
Okay, because when they told me who I was going to debate, I went online to check, and I'm in Wichita, and it's Reverend McGonigle. And I'm a Harry Potter fan, and I thought it was a practical joke. So I just had to get that out of the way. So, no, I'm very excited about this. And first of all, I am an atheist. And just to get it out of the way, I want to make clear what that is. I do not believe in God, a God, any God, deities, Thor, Zeus, Satan, any of those things. I am holding out for Wonder Woman, but she's actually an alien, so that we don't need to muddy the waters with that. Tonight, I will be attacking religion. When I say attacking, it's a very provocative word, and I mean for it to be. I am going to be really going after what I think is the problem that religion has in keeping a hold of the patriarchy that defines our society. But I'm very much aware of the fact that my co-debater and many in this audience are religious and have religious beliefs. I am not attacking you as people. I respect the fact that everyone here holds slightly different beliefs. Even atheists don't all believe or non-believe the same thing. So I respect that, and I want you to understand I'm not trying to attack you as people, but I believe that all ideas, especially religious ones, are open to debate, discussion, discourse, questioning, satire. I use a lot of satire. And that means I get to question them and attack them, and someone else gets to defend them. And that is what leads to what makes this country great: free speech, open discourse. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, as a great Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis once wrote. So, I absolutely believe that religion is the enemy of feminism. Did anyone doubt that when I came in the door, or when they asked me to do this? I think it is one of the most prevalent and pervasive reasons why women are not yet, in societal standards, equal to men. Do I think women are equal to men? Absolutely. But I think we're being held back. It is the primary tool, religion is, for the establishment of patriarchy, which is what dominates Western culture. And I've been asked to only speak about Western culture, so if I'm ignoring others, that is why. We're supposed to keep it to specific topics tonight, because otherwise we'd be here until my plane leaves tomorrow morning. Patriarchy elevates war and the spoils of war, which includes slavery, the subjugation of women, and rape, as things to promote and to measure men's power. It supports the idea of wealth accumulation and men and their sons as successors, which keeps women out. It elevates the control of reproduction and the sexual choices that women make, condemning how they live their lives, how they control their sexuality, and who their sex partners are, how many they have, and whether they choose to have sex at all. It is used to inflame emotions about domestic violence, abortion, access to child care, single parenthood, women's pay equity, all in the name of the majority's religious beliefs in this country and in other Western countries, where women are not yet achieving the same status. And my problem is, where are the women protesting this? There are women protesting this. Now is a great example. NAREL. Women in the atheist movement often protest these things. But the majority of women in this country are not standing up and demanding their rights. And I believe the reason is religion. Religion suckers women into believing that they deserve second-hand status, second-class status, and that what they are drawn up in life, the position that they are given, because their mothers had that position, their grandmothers, because they're told from infancy in every way in this society that they deserve it, that is all that they should have. There are 4 basic arguments that I get about the biased woman, and somebody better be watching the clock, because I am. Okay. And you can cut me off at any time. The good parts of the Bible cancel out the bad. This is cafeteria Christianity. It's very easy to pick out what you want from the cafeteria. And the same thing is true from the Bible. I can pick out great parts. There's parts of Ecclesiastes that I think are great. Even part of Psalms, okay? There's beautiful poetry in the Bible. That's true of any holy book. But there's some shit in there. Okay, I am going to swear. I'm sorry. It's going to happen. I apologize. I know we're in a church. I will try, but it happens. And every major religion does this. There's no holy book that's been written that is perfect, okay? That fits our modern culture. So as long as you recognize that you're doing cafeteria Christianity, okay. But then, why do we take this inconsistency? We don't allow our politicians to be inconsistent, at least we've started to stop them. We don't allow our schools to only allow men to be in sports. We demanded, and we got women to have sports. We don't allow men to be paid more. We're fighting for pay equity. So why do we allow in religion for there to be inconsistencies? Where are the women demanding that the Catholic Church renounce the fact that Mary Magdalene really wasn't a prostitute? We know that she wasn't. Gregory the Great, really, in 591, gave a sermon that said she was, and suddenly she's a prostitute? And who says prostitution is bad? Religion. It is a service industry. I'm just saying. Where is the outrage from women about Eve? Okay? She was looking for knowledge. Okay, she broke the rules. Who here didn't break the rules when they were a teenager? From their parents? Because they thought they knew better? She broke a rule looking for knowledge. And if that is what we're being punished for as the children of God, okay, I was going to say, frack that. I would gladly wash my hands of religion.
Okay, that's 5 minutes.
Okay,
Made it.
I have a lot more. I'm very excited.
Amanda, well, let's now go to Reverend Robin McGonigle and get her opening statement.
I too want to thank you for inviting me, Vicki, and Wichita NOW, and thank you for having this debate. I think it's very important, and Amanda and I got to meet earlier for dinner and shared a bite of food and chocolate souffle at Yaya's, so life is pretty good. I want to say a few things about religion. First of all, it's intended as a vessel for good. For example, the percentages of hospitals in Wichita, Kansas, that were started by a church or a denomination. The Lord's Diner, the hygiene pantry. Charitable gifts in August of 2012, according to the Chronicle of Philanthropy, found that residents in states where religious participation is higher than the rest of the nation actually gave the greatest percentage of their income to charity. Religious Faith and Charitable Giving, a book by Arthur Brooks, said that the difference in charity between secular and religious people is dramatic. Religious people, he found, are 25 percentage points more likely than secularists to donate money, 91% to 66%. And they are 23 points more likely to volunteer their time, 67% to 44%. So, like any other human-led group, of course, religion can be used as an excuse for oppression and violence. We can all name atrocities that have been done by people who stand behind God and religion. Inasmuch as I'm a representative of religion, I want to offer an apology for the wrongs that have been done in the name of God or religion. It is inexcusable. There are sexual scandals in the church. Some denominations stood on the side of slavery. There is hate that constantly is spewed in the name of God. While religion and religious people have committed grievous wrongs, there often is something much worse than religion behind their motivation. The Crusades. Were they really about religion, or were they about control and power? Fred Phelps' group. They offend me deeply, and many of you, I'm certain. They're spreading fear and hatred and using the name of God to do it. But what are they spreading? Not God's word, fear and hatred. There are exponentially more churches denouncing the hatred than they have supporters. So as feminists, we all want to free women regardless of their class, creed, age, race, gender identification. We all want to free women from systems of domination. And in order to do that, we need to be honest about motivations and human tendencies of oppression. It comes from fear and hate, power and control. Anyone can make an excuse for oppressing another, whether it's religious or economic or political, but we need to understand that the root of the problem, instead of allowing these excuses to blind us. A caution, just as one woman can't speak for all women, I can't speak for all religions or all religious people. I'm going to do my best to argue for religion being compatible and supportive of feminism, because by and large that's been my personal experience. But I'm certain that there are people for whom that is not true. I'm also not an expert on Islam or Judaism and some branches of Christianity, so I don't have the authority to speak on behalf of those groups. I began my journey in ministry in the 1970s, and my gender was an issue for my childhood church. They couldn't accept my call to ministry. Since then, however, I have had an incredible experience with a number of denominations at varying levels, and each experience has been one where women have been celebrated and women's leadership embraced. In fact, at one church, when I was called to be the minister, they had not yet met me other than the search committee, and when I walked in the room, there was spontaneous applause. I later found out that the search committee had been told that they must hire a woman. And when they announced my candidacy, they said, "Folks, we heard you loud and clearly, but we felt like we must also entertain a few resumes from men." This was 20 years ago in Kansas. Nationally, about a third of the people in seminary are women. In my former seminary, Phillips Theological Seminary, women number sometimes more than half and sometimes just short of half of the students. So women are changing the face and the structure of churches and bringing with them more feminine ways of structure, governance, theology, and openness.
I'm sorry to ask if I've been a little laughter, but we can continue all this at a little bit later down the road, so hold that thought. Okay, well, there you have a little bit of flavor of these two women and where they stand. And so, again, because of the outfit, Amanda will have the first question. And what I'm going to do is ask her this question, and then Reverend McGonigle will be allowed 2 minutes of rebuttal. She has no idea what, Amanda's going to say. And then, again, Amanda can have another 1 minute to rebuttal that rebuttal. So that makes sense too. So Amanda, here's your question. How can you explain the many women in society who support their church and their faith, if indeed religion is the enemy of feminism?
Brainwashing. A couple thousand years of being shown that women are second class, that women don't deserve to be leaders of their churches, that they don't deserve to be in the forefront of society, that they deserve less respect, that they deserve to be held to a double standard. Being born into a system, a society that reduces this idea, or that reinforces this idea that the male is dominant, world leaders, church leaders, biblical heroes, mythological heroes, the pronouns used in churches, all depict this. This really hit home for me when I was in junior high, and I heard a joke, and I told it to my Sunday school class, and I got in trouble. I'm going to tell you the joke, and I want you to guess why I got in trouble. So I told my Sunday school teacher I want to tell this joke, and I said, God is coming, and boy is she pissed. I got in trouble, but not for saying the P word, but for calling God a woman. And that's when it hit home to me, that God is supposed to be a man, and only a man. And it hadn't occurred to me until that point that it was, ingrained. God has to be a man. He is the Father. He is the Lord. There are no female pronouns. And when I dared to use one and bring it up to my Sunday school class, I got slammed down hard. They told my parents. My mother reacted well. My dad was a little bit sterner. And I was raised in the Methodist church, a fairly liberal one. But we didn't have a female pastor until I was much older and had already become an atheist, so it didn't matter by then. And there were many reasons for me becoming an atheist. This wasn't. But what this did was open my eyes to the idea that men were better. Men ruled. That was it. That was it. God was a guy. Kings rule, right? Up until now, in England, succession passed through the men. I don't know if it actually passed that law. Religion provides women, and I'm not judging, an easy way to avoid a more difficult path of life. It takes a lot of strength to turn away from saying that it's God's will that this be done, or Jesus saved me, or Jesus helped me, and to say that you have to stand on your own 2 feet. And that doesn't mean that you're not looking for help from friends or family or a social network or a social structure. Because I, as an atheist, have that. I have friends, I have supporters, I have people I lean on and support. But I don't for a minute think that I'm just turning over my life and throwing up my hands in the air and saying it's up to some nameless being who's watching out over the earth and I think has time for my life. And I think it is somewhat arrogant for us to think that when there's tragedy and a mother clutches her child who was saved after a shooting and says, God was protecting my child, and 30 other children died, what was God doing for them? So I think that religion has created this answer, this easy answer for society and for women in particular, because when your child dies or when your child is saved, that's all you care about. And religion provides that. It is much more difficult to try and find answers without religion, because religion provides the easy one, and beware the easy answers.
Okay, that's about right on. Okay, 2-minute rebuttal.
I think women find in the church very often some of the things that Amanda has expressed. I also, from my experience and from women that I have spoken with, know that women attend church and participate for other reasons. They receive healing and hope in the church. It can be a place of healing, for hope, for help. For me, it's been a village where my children found friends and mentors, adults who really cared about them and came to their events and nurtured them and mentored them. I think women go to church and participate in religious activities for enrichment. My life has been enriched because I find other women and men who want to share all that life is and can be with other people at a deeper level than what they might find just in the general population. I think women go to churches for challenge, because certainly the church challenges us to continue to grow and mature in our faith and our morality. Women go to church for opportunities for service. The church offers us opportunities to give financially as well as with our physical bodies and our brains, beyond what we would even know about, perhaps, by sitting in our own homes or going out to lunch with friends. Another reason that women go to church is that they can offer help and support. The church is where you can go when you need help, whether it's a marriage, the loss of a child, a birthday, or major life changes, the death of a loved one. And the people of the church are ready and willing to handle issues of educational and spiritual value.
Okay. Do you have a rebuttal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And no disrespect intended. Religion has created, churches have created an extremely attractive honey trap. And I think that because they've existed for so long and they have evolved with our society and changed, that these things that we enjoy, the fellowship of other people who have common interests, childcare for free on Sundays, and if you belong to a network of churches, every week in the summer for summer Bible camp. You can have these things. You just have to keep filling their plate and check your self-determination and logic at the door.
Okay. That's the end of our first question. Let's go on to the second question, and this is for you, Robin. The Bible clearly contains some troubling passages about women. How can these teachings be overlooked or not seen as problematic to a woman in modern society?
Well, the Bible has clearly troubling passages about men as well. There are men in the Bible who make King Henry VIII look like a feminist. Let's be honest. Adam ate the forbidden fruit and got tossed out of the garden too, and what does he do? He blames it all on his mate. The woman you gave to me, she's the one. So chivalry, taking personal responsibility for your actions, evidently hadn't been yet invented. Abraham, to save his own neck, he and his wife Sarah venture into Egypt. The Hebrew patriarch passes her off as his sister so that the Pharaoh can have sex with her. The ruse works. Sarah is taken into the Pharaoh's harem temporarily, and we won't go on. Lot, Abraham's nephew, offers up his own virgin daughters to a mob in Sodom. They demand sex with two of Lot's male house guests. King David, whether it's rape or seduction, he leverages his authority to have his way with the married Bathsheba, whom he spies on while she's bathing. You're getting the picture. The Bible isn't only negative about men or women. The point is that the biblical story isn't all about good people. It gives the readers examples of people from whom we can learn. To quote Liz Curtis Higgins, who wrote Bad Girls of the Bible and What We Can Learn from Them, she said, Sarah was so faithful, Esther was so courageous, Mary was so innocent, I am so none of the above. Then I happened upon Jezebel, and something inside me clicked. I identified with her pushy personality. I understood her need for control. I empathized with her angry outbursts. So the stories of women who are less than perfect are there so that we can learn from them a moral, a point of wisdom. These are our foremothers, whose stories are told with purpose and with pride, and we become richer and wiser when we know her story. There are parts in the Bible which are progressive toward women's place in society. Paul, who isn't always seen as a friend to women, actually writes a letter of reference to the church for two women. Phoebe, whom he names as a deacon in the first century church, he says, help her in any way she may require of you. And most importantly, at the climax of the Christian story, when Jesus is resurrected, every gospel indicates that it was women who were the ones entrusted to share the good news. It was the women who brought the message of hope to the disciples who were huddled in fear, hiding away in a room. So we don't overlook the passages that are unflattering to women. We learn from them, and we insist that prejudice, oppression, and misogyny be put to an end.
Okay. 2-minute rebuttal.
I appreciate that there are a lot of bad men in the Bible, but most of what they do is against women. And what happens to the women is that they're victimized. They are offered up as sex slaves. They are raped. They are offered up as the spoils of war. And so you can say that there's something to learn from that, but I'm not sure what it is other than that women are less than men. I don't think that saying that it's okay to just learn from these are people to learn from, these are people that we don't want to emulate is enough. It's cafeteria Christianity again. And again, it's okay if you want to do that, as long as you recognize you're doing that. But then, what's the point of the Bible if not taken as a whole? Again, most of us wouldn't have made it out of our teen years because our parents would have killed us if we were following the Bible strictly. At least one person I had dinner with tonight would not have been able to have her shrimp linguine. And, I, or other people in this room, if we were attacked, we had to marry a rapist. So I'm glad that we don't follow the Bible strictly, but it's cafeteria Christianity.
1 minute rebuttal, Robin.
I like to say, and it's not originally with me, that we take the Bible seriously, not literally. And by that what I mean is not that we have cafeteria Christianity, but rather that we read the Bible with an awareness of where it comes from, the society, the times. And like any literary piece, we look at what is the point? Why did the writer write this, and to whom was he or she writing? What are the points that they are trying to make? Not all books of the Bible are historical, and they're not told for historical purposes. There are fables and poems and letters and all different kinds of literature in the Bible. We also are pointed out that there is societal sin. It isn't just a woman's sin or a man's sin, but patriarchy is a societal sin. And many of the stories in the Bible indicate the problems with this kind of governance.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now the next question is going to go to, I have this wrong, actually it's Robin. And Robin, this is your question. Amanda, this is your question. Not all Christian Judeo-religions have been unsupportive of feminist issues. Many Protestant churches supported the ERA and are pro-choice. Isn't it a sweeping statement to declare religion as the enemy of feminism?
No. It's not a sweeping statement. It is true. We go back to the cafeteria style of religious practice. And there are many churches and religious leaders that are trying to fashion their religion, their Christianity, so it is more socially aware. I'm good friends with Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, Reverend Barry Lynn. He wrote the foreword for my book. And I'm also friends with Reverend Welton Gaddy, who is the head of the Interfaith Alliance. I'm hoping that after tonight, Robin will still want to be my friend. So there are people and there are churches that are trying to advance this social agenda, to make Christianity, and I'm sticking to Christianity because I don't know enough about how Reform Judaism is going, work. You can go back to abolitionism. You can go to the women's rights movement and the civil rights era and now LGBT. And you can find churches doing that. But it is directly in contrast to what much of the Bible says, or there is nothing in the Bible to support it. And so while I applaud their efforts, I'm also wary of them. Because if they can construct their Christianity and their religious beliefs to support these efforts, we've also seen how the religious right can warp the same book, the same teachings, So that you have Reverend Phelps and his family. So you have the Pat Robertsons. So you have Reverend Falwell and his church. And so if you don't take the Bible as it is, if you start to put your own interpretation into it, then you're substituting your own judgment. And that means anybody can do that. Now in the Catholic Church, there's only one person, maybe now two. Well, there'll be two people. I don't know. That's so fracked up. But the point is that, what's the point? So throw it out. Throw out the Bible. Then where do you get your basis? Well, we atheists, we have a whole idea about that. In fact, we have lots of ideas about that, and we'd be happy to share them at a different point. But the idea is that everyone says something different about what the Bible means. And consider this. It went through how many translations? How many edits? How many times did somebody, for political reasons, in the 1200s make a change? Why did the Catholic Church pick which books to put in? So what you're getting is someone else's decisions upon decisions upon decisions. And then you're left with this book that is supposed to be the Word of God, or the Word as man believed it was given to him. And that's supposed to decide it? So, no, it is not a sweeping statement. It is wonderful that there are religious Christian sects that are trying to conform their religion to being more socially forward and support all people. But as much as they're trying to do that, there are people using the exact same book, just different pieces of it, to do the exact opposite thing.
Okay. 2-minute rebuttal.
Women's voices continue to be heard in and influence in the church. When a girl hears that she is imago Dei, made in the image of God, she is empowered by her faith to speak up on issues that are important outside the church walls. In one of the churches that I was the minister, I had parents come to me at their child's graduation from high school and say to me, "My children have never had a male minister. They do not know that men can be ministers." It surprised me. When I was 17 years old, First United Methodist Church in Hutchinson, Kansas, allowed me my first opportunity to preach, and for a 17-year-old to go through the exercise of writing a 15-minute sermon and having an audience to share it with, that was an incredible educational experience for me. Whether it was religious or not, I'm not certain, but I know for 15 minutes I had the opportunity to speak in a forum where I was welcomed and loved. The church has offered for me and many an opportunity for education and helped to pay for it in order for me to teach and nurture other people, often women, and to encourage them to become bold bearers of truth in their communities. And finally, the church offers a place like this for community dialogue and issues of public concern, diversity and racism, justice for migrant workers, immigration reform, and all of the other things that have been important not only to our own society, but to cultures that came before us, where churches were available for this kind of conversation.
Okay. 1-minute rebuttal.
Churches are tax exempt and suck billions of dollars away from federal programs that support women. If churches were not tax exempt, if they did not receive special religious privileging that nonprofits don't, for example, property tax exemption, programs that support women in education, welfare programs to get them back to work, child care, kindergarten programs. I'm forgetting the one that's preschool. Help me out. Head Start. I don't have kids, sorry. Could all be fully funded, and we wouldn't have to worry about them anymore. So, churches, religion, are definitely the enemy of feminism.
Okay. Robin, this is your question now this time. And this has already been brought up a little bit by Amanda. Religion is a hierarchy of God, man, woman, and child. Therefore, if you start from that premise, woman is always lower in power and authority than man. How is this not the antithesis of feminism?
Well, it might not come as a surprise to you that I reject the premise completely. There are some religious structures with a top-down hierarchy. However, there are just as many with a bottom-up governance structure. Let me explain. If you imagine a triangle, and this is the hierarchy we're speaking of in this question, the top, if we're talking about Roman Catholicism, is the Pope, and the bottom is the people. That is true. But there are other religious organizations, including my own, that have a bottom-down structure. The triangle is upside down in this case. The congregants, the people of the church, have the ultimate authority. The ministers work on their behalf and at their request. And the national organizations follow suit and have less authority. Paul wrote, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female, slave nor free. We are all one in Jesus." This is one of the first New Testament writings in the Bible. Paul was one of the first writers. The creation story in Genesis 1 has the Creator speak in the plural. Let us make humans in our image. Both the human and the divine are plural. Woman is imprinted with the image of God. Male and female, it says, God created them. And then God gives them a blessing together, again in the plural. And God gives them instruction together to care for the earth, the animals, the plants, and all that has breath. This instruction is equal to men and to women. The Bible has a second creation story in Genesis 2. The man in this story is made first and the female later. But the Creator makes the woman from the man's side as an equal. And the Creator names them one flesh, again, equal. The Hebrew Bible offers several passages about a feminine God, Sophia, wisdom. Sophia is said to have been with God, as God, since the beginning of creation. Feminine deities are part of the Judeo-Christian tradition, the heritage, and the Bible, and theologians continue to discover that our faith has empowered women to be divinely feminine and wise. And so I reject the premise altogether that religion as a whole is a hierarchy. There are places where that is true. It is not what the congregations that I have served and the people that I know would accept.
Okay, 2-minute rebuttal, Amanda.
With respect, I think that's the exception that you've experienced, not the rule. We have the Southern Baptist Convention, where pretty much if the woman doesn't stay in the home and take care of the family, and most specifically the man, she is in violation of the church. And that covers, I think, like a third of the country. You have the Catholic Church, which is definitely male and definitely one and then top down. The bottom-up hierarchy is I know of it, I have seen it, I think it is great, but it can still be corrupted because women do not have as much time to serve on committees, to be part of the meetings, because they're busy taking care of children and staying home, and they are still dominated by men. The idea that behind every great man is a woman, there's a reason why people say that and why it's true. because women support men, and men are the patriarchy. They are in front. They are the leaders. And men wouldn't be where they are without women, but we still do not have parity. Feminism is not about putting men down. It's about recognizing that women are equal. You're right. Paul said some great things about women. And then you have 1 Timothy, which I know is disputed. I'm not saying Paul wrote it. Not a biblical scholar, but I do know my Bible. And the second generation of Christians were not welcoming to women. And yet that stays in the Bible, and that is passed on. And you have popes that denigrate women. And you have churches that insist women need to stay in the home. You have political leaders that work to make it harder on women to be single mothers, who denigrate their choices and their reproductive rights. So I say that the hierarchy that is mentioned is definitely alive and well.
Okay. And a minute for you. Sorry, I kind of forgot when you started, so I think. Go ahead, take a minute.
Well, my husband's here tonight, and he's going to be very interested in the idea that women don't have time to serve on church committees and volunteer as much because they're just, they don't take care of the children. That wasn't the way it worked in our home. And honey, thank you for being a man in every sense of the word and raising our children when I was not home for many years, actually.
Okay, thank you. All right, this next question then is to Amanda. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I lost my place. Can it not be argued that religion has liberated women and or provided support to women in need in our society?
No, it cannot. Okay. No, religion has not liberated women. It has done the exact opposite, and especially in the last couple of years, I think we have seen a resurgence in people using religion as a means to try to keep women down, to try to use religion as a way to control women in whatever way they can. I'm not saying that religion is bad when an individual uses it for themselves. I personally think it is, but I'm not saying that for an individual it is. However, when used through government, when used as a means of power, as Robin says, it is perverted. It is used to control people. As Seneca the Younger said, I'm paraphrasing, religion is considered by the masses as true, by the wise as false, and by rulers as useful. Compare the person who believes there's a God with the person who believes that men are superior to women. There's no difference. Both are beliefs that are lacking in evidence. You cannot be a feminist if you are unwilling to examine your own religious beliefs and question the logic. If you're willing to accept that there's a God, if you're willing to accept the Bible, if you're willing to just believe on faith, then you must also accept the premise that men are better than women, that men are superior to women, because there is no scientific evidence for either one. Feminism, again, is about parity, not putting men down. But in a patriarchy, it stings for men to give up some of that privilege. It is never easy for change, and men have been in control. They have led, some of them with women at their side, some of them pushing women ahead of them, but they have been leading. Ideas perpetuated by religion and patriarchy, that women are subservient to men, that women are irrational and too emotional. Ideas perpetuated by Pat Robertson, Billy Graham, Rush Limbaugh, that are listened to by millions of people every day. Keep this patriarchy alive. Keep women from being on par with men. Religion is used to decide what is good and what is bad. It judges women harshly, and most often about our sexual activity. Women are judged if they want to be sexually active, if they want to use birth control, if they want to have children, if they don't want to have children, if they're not married, if they choose women as sexual partners. All of this is more condemned than it is for men.
Okay, sorry. Yes, Robin, 2-minute rebuttal.
The church is a place where women come for counseling after traumatic life events. Counseling that I have done, for example, for women who have had abortions, miscarriages, lost children, abused by spouses, divorces, life crises. As a minister, these are everyday occurrences for people to come to the church looking for hope and help. Some of the early feminists came out of the church. Mary Daly, Nell Morton, Rosemary Radford Ruther. And feminist scholarship continues with incredible research and the correcting of patriarchal history. Amy Jill Levine, Phyllis Tribble, Elizabeth Schussler Ferenza, Karen King. These are women who are out there on the cutting edge of our educational institutions, and they are researching and writing and teaching and preaching new ways of being a woman in religion. They are revisiting scholarship done by men and looking at it critically from another point of view. They are learning that we, as Amanda said, have sometimes been lied to and cheated out of the wisdom and the story of our women. They are discovering and sharing new stories of women's power and courage and wisdom that haven't been told before. And they're working to liberate men as well, telling stories of men who have been supportive of women and women's work. Women's voices are increasingly heard in congregations Friday evenings and Sunday mornings and other times. There are many women who find help and hope in their churches and who teach us new things. And there are many feminists who find hope and help in the church and have something to say about our foremothers.
Okay, Amanda, you have 1 minute for both.
I'm going to ask for 2.
Oh. Do you agree with that? Are you good with that? She wants a 2-minute rebuttal.
Oh, sure.
All right, you good?
20% of the hospitals in this country are controlled by Catholics. And for 20%, that means more than 40% of the women in this country who attempt to get basic services are denied because of religious preference by the people who control those hospitals. So religion is not supporting women, it is not supporting feminism, and it is controlling the patriarchy in this country when it comes to healthcare. In Arizona, over half the women in the state cannot receive basic feminine care because Catholic hospitals are in control of the medical system. They have to drive hundreds of miles to a major city in order to find a non-Catholic controlled clinic or hospital in order to receive gynecological exams, birth control, counseling, and any kind of abortion care. I appreciate that my co-debater and other pastors provide counseling, but there are many of us who are non-religious, and we don't want to go to churches for counseling. I don't want to hear that someone who died in my life is in a better place. They're just dead. That happens. And I want to talk about it, but I don't want to hear platitudes that are meaningless to me. I don't want my money going towards religion that is going to enforce beliefs that I don't believe in or support things that I don't care about. I want secular support, and I think that should be available to everybody. When I go to a hospital that's non-religious and I can't get a secular humanist or a secular supporter, a secular therapist, or a secular clergy to come and talk to my loved one or to me because I'm having problems, I can only get a Catholic priest, a Jewish rabbi, or a nominal Protestant religion person to come talk to me. That is the patriarchy continuing to keep feminism down and atheism down. They are inextricably tied when it comes to the healthcare system and women's rights in this country. A little over 2 minutes.
Okay. Robin, you have the last individual question, and here it is. Beginning with the story of Eve, women are marked as bringing death and sin into the world. How can feminists reconcile this story as anything other than demeaning?
Was the defining characteristic of Eve that she was female or that she was human? The story is told for a theological purpose, and the theological purpose is to explain sin. It's obviously an allegorical story and not one that is taken literally. The story is about self-awareness. Both genders, male and female, were unaware of their nakedness and their vulnerability before sin. But after the wrongdoing that they both engaged in, they become aware of their own mortality. In fact, in the story, Adam tries to blame Eve for the sin and get himself out of trouble. But God doesn't distinguish between the two of them by keeping Adam in the garden and banishing Eve. Both humans are treated equally and put outside the original perfection that was called Eden. Let us remember the biblical story of Lot, David, and perhaps most notably Judas, who betrays Jesus. The purpose of these kinds of stories is very similar. Their sin is not about their gender, it's about their faults, their lives, and the natural consequences of their actions. Let's take a look at Eve. Barbara Grzinski Harrison writes, "When Eve bit into the apple, she gave us the world we know as the world. Beautiful, flawed, and dangerous, full of being. She gave us smallpox and Somalia, polio vaccines and wheat and Windsor roses. She gave me the computer I'm writing on and planted in my blood and bones and flesh a variable human love, the intoxication of the body. She, not Mary, is the mother of my children, born in travail to a world of suffering. Their presence may refresh. She is my sister. Even when alienation from God, we may feel as a direct consequence of her fall, makes us beholden to her, the intense desire for God, never satisfied, arises from our separation from him. In our desire, this desire makes us perfectly human. It's contained in our celebration and our rejoicing. The mingling, melding, braiding of good and mischief in every human soul, the fusion of good and bad in intent and in act, is what makes us recognizable and delicious to one another. Without it, without the genetically transmitted knowledge of good and evil that Eve's act of radical curiosity sowed in our marrow, we should not desire to know and to love God. We would have no need of God. We would have no need of another.
Okay, 2-minute rebuttal.
Once again, comparing Eve and the consequences of her actions with the men in the Bible strikes me as a little false, because today women are blamed continuously for what Eve did, and the punishment is held against all women. I don't see men in today's society being punished for what King David did or what Lot did or any of the other men in the Bible. On the other hand, Eve and her actions as described in the Bible are held up consistently for why women need to be held back, both in Jewish culture and in many of the Christian sects. So I don't think it's an equal comparison. And I think that was a beautiful passage that you read. It just meant nothing to me, other than it was pretty. I think I'm about 11% Neanderthal, so I don't know what that makes Eve genetic makeup. If you do, you can $99, you can find out how much Neanderthal you are. And I think all humans are curious. We all want to know what happens and what makes the world go round and what's out there and are we alone. And it doesn't make me look for God because I don't believe in the God of the gaps. I don't believe in God at all. I want to know what's out there. And just because I don't know all the answers, because humans don't know yet, doesn't mean that God is there. It's okay not to have the answers. And I think that we as humans can accept that and be okay with that. It's okay not to have the answers. And that's where religion goes wrong, because it tries to give you all of the answers to everything. And that's where it's tragically hurt people and been mistaken and led us down the wrong path. And women need to stop accepting it and start thinking for ourselves and say it's okay not to have all the answers and just keep going and really enjoy this life that we have.
Okay. 1 minute rebuttal, Robin.
In Judaism, there is a great tradition of asking questions. Judaism is a religion where the pursuit of intellectual dialogue and questioning is honored. In my tradition, that is true as well. So when you hear that religion tries to give us all the answers, that has not been true for me, and I don't think it's been true for many people in a variety of religions. Instead, religion is a place where we can ask questions. There are a variety of opportunities for us to ask those questions and to hear various people's response to those questions. But it isn't that they are proclaiming the only truth, because there are others who also ask further questions. So I believe that religion is a place to ask the questions.
Okay. I have one final question for both of these ladies. And I'm going to ask if you can maybe just take 2 minutes apiece on this, since we're almost on target, but we're kind of coming down to the end. And I want to give the audience time to ask some questions. And this is a little bit repetitive, but there's a difference in this question. And this is the question for both, and it goes like this. Throughout the 70s and the 80s, many Protestant faiths began to feminize the liturgy, or neutralize those passages that appeared patriarchal in nature. Was this a good first step? Or should it go much further in rejecting biblical teachings that appear misogynist and or culturally insensitive today? I know that's kind of a leading question. You can disagree with the premise, but Amanda, I'll start with you first.
Okay. I'm going to go back to one of my points and repeat a little bit of what I said, because I think this goes to some of the things that both Robin and I have covered. If you're going to start changing the Bible to conform with what the standards are today, with where we are today, then you're changing the meaning of what was written. Well, okay, so let's assume that the Bible has been changed and altered and we're making it work today. Well, don't you assume, you have to assume, that that's happened before. And we know it's happened before. That whether it's King James or Pope Gregory or a dozen other people have directly changed or influenced parts of the Bible. The Catholic Church has picked and chosen which books got into the Bible. So if you accept that it has changed, the languages, the translations, all have altered the meaning, and you're willing to do that too in order to make it more friendly to women, whether it's changing it so that God is pissed and God is coming and boy is she pissed, is okay, then you're substituting your own judgment on it. And at what point does that make the Bible no longer worthwhile to your beliefs? And I think it renders it useless. So I'm fine with that. Throw out the Bible. Okay, so then what do you base your beliefs on? Well, to me it would be the social mores of what we have. You build on it. We are a social system. We are social beings. We have to work together or we would die out. So we build on that. It's like the idea that just because if we don't have the 10 Commandments somewhere, we're going to start murdering each other. That's terrifying to an atheist, that the only thing keeping you from murdering your next door neighbor because they stay up too late watching television and you can hear it is because God might smite you when you die. Please, I hope there's more than that keeping you from killing your neighbor. There's certainly more than that keeping me from killing my neighbor, and I don't believe in God. So I think you just throw it out. It doesn't matter whether you change the passages to he, she, them, him, her, whatever. It makes it meaningless. And to me, the Bible is already meaningless because you're willing to change it to fit your construct. And if you're willing to change it to fit what you believe now, then it had no meaning before. And I just want to add real quick that I know that a lot of people get a lot of comfort out of the Bible, and I appreciate that. And there are passages that are very beautiful, but that doesn't mean you should set a whole system of belief on it.
Okay, Robin?
Sacred texts evolve. They do. That is the nature of what it means to have a sacred text. They evolve. I believe it was Wesley who suggested that we have scripture read by a four-legged stool. Reason, tradition. Scripture, reason, tradition, and some experience. And this is a helpful model because sacred scripture doesn't exist in and of itself. It exists within a community of faith. It is a living organism. That's part of what makes it sacred. I can read something one day and read it 10 years later, and the same thing may mean different things to me because of my life. So my experience has a piece of that sacred nature. Using those qualities to understand sacred literature is an important thing. It's not individualistic. You don't change it because you don't like something or you disagree with something. It's changed within the context of the community of faith. It is changed within the context of people trying to live holy lives. Absolutely, the Bible has evolved and changed and been manipulated and been abused. That is part of our history. It doesn't make it less sacred to me. It makes it more sacred because it has endured and because people still learn and grow from reading it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's give them a hand first.